Alright, hello fun and welcome back to my developer vlog series, where today we're going to be having a look at the progress I've made in the past 2 weeks on project StrateZ. And oh my, I am so much happier with how things have gone this time compared to the last developer vlog because, well, these barges. You may remember last go-around, it was kind of a 50-50 situation of me both loving what I'd done and also hating life, because I couldn't figure out for the life of me why these barges were not functioning as navigable terrain. They were working just fine here in Unity, which is where I do all of my personal testing, or at least where I did all my personal testing. Now I am spending a lot more time in my published versions over here doing testing too, and I wasn't able to figure out why the barge thing was happening, but I figured out a workaround. So now if we resume here and click this guy,
Copy that.
Look at that, he can go on the barges with no problem. And the workaround that I did discover, or figure out rather, is, if we go back to Unity, there we go, is I added invisible boxes. For some reason, the game, when we actually published it, or made the distributable file, whatever you want to say, wasn't seeming to recognize the mesh colliders on these barges here, despite the fact that it recognizes mesh colliders on, say, this boat. This boat is also using mesh colliders, and it has no issues whatsoever with navigation. But these barges, for whatever reason, were not. So I added invisible boxes with box colliders so that you walk on those rather than the barges themselves. Which works. I'm a little bit annoyed by it because that does mean, without adding like even smaller little invisible boxes with box colliders to all of these little can't remember the proper word for those little bits on the barge. But yeah, you can actually walk straight through these at the moment, which I'm kind of annoyed by, but at the moment, I'm happy that we can at least get on these barges. Oh boy, it drove me so mad, and we found a workaround, which I am happy about. I just wish I could figure out why the nav meshes on the mesh colliders wasn't working for these. Now, so that's the first thing I was able to fix these past 2 weeks, which I'm ecstatic about. The next thing is with the treasure items. I did mention I wanted to do more with them, add in more treasure items, and also change what they had inside them. And you may remember previously we only had these 2 boxes, at least in this area, and there's a third now. And I've gone back through every one of our maps and added more treasure items in, and in some maps where they were non-existent, like Little City, I just added them in entirely. And I've also gone through, and each treasure item is now different. So like this one has ammo in it, this one has scrap, this one has food, and they are scattered around the map. On this map, I doubled, I think? Actually, I think I more than doubled the amount of treasure items. We have 8 here now, and I think there were... Oh, no, there were 4 before. So yeah, I doubled the amount of treasure items on this map. Some maps, like Alpha Map, I think I only added in 2 new treasure items. But yeah, I've made them all so they're unique now, rather than all having the exact same resource. And I really didn't do it here very much, but in other maps, I tried to make it thematically make sense. So if you found a treasure item out front of a diner, it's gonna have food in it. If you found one by a police station, it's gonna have ammo, etc. And I'm pretty happy about that. I do plan on adding a new kind of treasure item, specifically for the zombie faction, because right now only these survivors can take advantage of these. And what I'm wanting to do is, for the zombies, we of course have our flesh piles scattered around as a continuous resource, but what I want to actually make is individual bodies in the map that'll serve like treasure items for the survivors, but providing flesh for the zombies. That's one of the things I want to work on in the next 2 weeks, and I think that'll be fun. It'll also add more, death and decay to the world, which I think will look good in, post-apocalyptic setting here. So yeah, you'll have like little individual corpses spread around the place, which is a little bit disturbing, but hey, zombie post-apocalypse, good times. Now, that's really it for the small things. There's been a couple of other minor things here and there. I actually have gone through all of the maps and actually made it so now if you get close to the edge, you no longer see just a straight off end to the map. I've made it so all of them actually go out a bit further, have some additional terrain items or whatever, so it doesn't feel like you are in this tiny constrained map world. Some of them still need a little work, but I'm happy with overall how it's looking, and thankfully, with us having the Fog of War now, that made my life a lot easier. So like on the alpha map, for instance, we used to have it so that, you know, way over here, it just ended dead right at those cliffs. And even with the Fog of War, you could end up seeing, like, up to here. And so now, as you can see here, I've got grass out that way. I plan on adding a few more trees so it's, you know, still looks a little bit more natural. But yeah, I've made it so all of the borders for all of the maps now look a bit nicer when you get to the edge rather than just a dead-on stop to the world. And I've also done a little bit of messing around with some terrain and other objects. Now, another small thing I've done, and you may see it right there, is that I've added a third faction here to the alpha map because this is by far the largest map I have, and it seemed really empty for a lot of what was going on, so I did add a third faction area. Now, by default, right now, it's zombies, but of course, when you go to the single-player map menu, you can change it to whatever you want, and they're going to be up here. So it's going to be a little bit tighter to build in than, say, the usual survivor spot over in there, but has a bit more room to build around than the other zombie area over there. And I'm hoping that that adds in a little bit more difficulty into the map, because I know some people have been saying that even on the hard mode, it's been a bit easy. So on a large map like this, you're going to have to deal with 2 opponents, which I think will be fun. And a big reason I did that is for, also besides making it a bit more interesting, is because of some future plans, which I hope to talk about next video, depending on how some things go. But yeah, I like how it's going there. Now, of course, the other maps, like Country Road, Harbor Master, and Little City, those are going to remain as 2 because they're much smaller. So adding in a third faction there would just make it a bit too awkward, I think. But we do now have another large map with 3 factions, and that was the big thing I worked on in these past 2 weeks, the quarantine map. So let's load this one up. Now, in reality, or well, technically, I guess, this is actually a larger map than the alpha map, but it actually has less playable area than the alpha map because I did want these water bits around. As I really wanted on this particular map to give you 3 unique areas to build in and a central spot where everything collides, where you can also have all the resources you need in this center zone to make another base. So I really like how it is at the moment, but I would love to hear your guys' opinions once you get into playing this. But as for the different zones, let's take a look at the Survivor Command Post first over here. And this, didn't zoom in, there we go. The survivors by default are here in this military base, an old abandoned area here where we've got a heliport with a crashed helicopter, plenty of resources, a little barracks zone over there, a like training yard. That was getting laggy there because it's still faking the lighting right now. Really should just set that. We got like a little training area over here, bunkers, and, you know, just a variety of different bits and bobs. We even got a broken down artillery piece over here that I quite liked putting in there. I had fun with that. I don't know why it was so fun for me, but I enjoyed it. And it's actually pointing at the next place we'll look at, and that is over there in the quarantine city. Notice the giant hole in the wall. The artillery piece is what destroyed it. For what reason? I don't know. I haven't figured that out. But I like the idea that that giant hole in the wall got perhaps accidentally blown out by this artillery piece here. So yeah, let's head on over to that zone. And I believe that's... Nope, that's the third one we'll look at. Let's go to this body pile in the old quarantine city. So we have the ruins of a city that was, surrounded by walls right here. And this is another zombie spawn area, though of course can also have survivors. It's gonna be a harder one to build in, just because there's a lot more rubble here, but I kind of like that it's a bit more difficult, just to make it harder on whoever does be a survivor in this area. But if you're a zombie, though, you're good. There's really not much building in that regard. But from here, actually, let's head back here real quick. I wanted to point out that for each of the areas, they have 2 entrances and exits, and then one bridge that connects them to the rest of the world. So on the military base, you can actually go through this gate here that is large enough for units to fit through, or through this hole in the wall that leads into the training area. Now and then of course they have this bridge here leading to the central area. Now for the quarantine zone, we have this gate here that they can all fit through, as well as, of course, the giant hole in the quarantine wall that was blown out by the artillery piece. And both of them, you can have units go through. This one, it looks a little awkward as the units go through right now because I'm just relying on the mesh colliders, so they kind of bob up and down as they're going over the rubble. I may make a custom thing in here just so it's a bit more smooth. I don't know, but yeah, you have those 2 exits to leave the quarantined zone. And then this bridge that connects it to the rest of the world, and you have a bit of a ruined little town situation going on here, outside the wall, full of zombies. And I quite like that. And yeah, I really love the little city area. And then if we go over to the final zone, there we are. This is the quarantine camp, where they tried to solve the problem and save people, etc., with medical tents and all that jazz. And yeah, right now I've got another body pile here, but of course it could be another good area for scavengers, and you got a lot of good room to build in this zone. And it is, of course, all encircled by fences, but we have the 2 entrances right there, and also a hole in the fences back here, with this bridge leading to the central area. Now, in said central area, we have a diner. We have plenty of resources scattered around here. Not a lot of room to build. It's a little bit tight, but enough that you could make a small defensible base here as a survivor, or really as a zombie. And then a little nice hidden spot over here where we have a little trail leading to a small encampment with more resources you could take advantage of. So all in all, I really like how this map looks. It's fun. I really have enjoyed making it. There may still need to be a little bit of set dressing done to it. I'm overall very happy with how it looks, but I don't know, there might be some small bits and bobs I need to add in. And yeah, overall though, I quite like it. Now, the last thing I want to talk about before we briefly go over what my plan is for the next 2 weeks is I had been talking the last time about our fog of war. And at the moment, it's primarily is just a circle as your troops advance through the world. And of course, your buildings, you place down a building, boom, and the little circle around it gets lit up. And I wanted to test something. And if we actually go into the map here, what I've done is, for right now, let's actually turn down the music, and oh boy, that went black again. It stays white in the game, but for some reason, sometimes in Unity, these go black, and I don't know why. But for right now, just the scavengers, they're using line of sight. So if we actually have him walk out here, well, there you go. It's not just the big circle lighting up around him. It actually, he needs to actually be able to look around corners. So we're not being able to see behind those buildings yet, until, of course, he does go behind those buildings. And I kind of like it, but it's also a little finicky.
Proceeding.
I'd have to do a lot of additional work for, like, trees are considered terrain for me right now, because I've got some weird blocks that I've been using. But, so if I do terrain to have them also have the line of sight, it makes it so you actually see nothing in, like, this chunk of grass until you step on the grass. It's real weird. So at the moment, it's just buildings and obstacles, like the helicopter here. But I kind of like it, but it's also weird. And at the moment, only the scavenger has the line of sight. Everyone else still has the standard circle around them, and I wanted to do it that way so you guys could see and test how both work. So if you had a rifleman, you could have them, or militiaman rather, you could have them running around. It'll still be the circle for lit up area for the Fog of War. And so yeah, hopefully you guys will enjoy, or well rather you'll test both, figure out what you enjoy, and I'd love to hear your opinions on it, because yeah, whichever one you guys like we'll probably switch to. For me personally, I'm not actually liking the line of sight too much, just because it does seem to be a bit finicky and a little glitchy. Yeah. I've been having a problem that after sending a couple of commands to him, yeah, there it goes. I lost my selection on him. And that only happens when he's looking around with line of sight. The regular units that are just the circle, that doesn't happen to them. And I don't know why. So it's finicky and buggy. But still, I'd like to see your guys' opinions. If you really like the line of sight, I may stick with it, and then we can, you know, try and figure out those glitches down the road. But yeah, that's it for the new features. As for what I'm hoping to accomplish in the next 2 weeks, I'm done with making maps for a little while. The next time I do make a map is when we're actually going to start working on the campaign. But for the next 2 weeks, I want to fix some menu issues. For instance, actually, if we go back to the game, I'm wanting to finally move around the single-player stuff, so all this information on the right-hand panel is now at the bottom, and the map info stuff here is up at the top, just so it's a little bit, I think, a little bit better visually. I also want to fix some of the UI issues in the actual maps. I'm hoping to solve some of the other issues that we're having with a few things. I've been kind of putting off a couple of the bugs because I was hoping for the next version of the Unity RTS engine to fix them. But I don't know if all of those will be fixed, so I'm going to try and dig a bit deeper into those and maybe attempt to fix them myself. We'll see how that goes. I'm only a moderate coder at best, but we'll see. And yeah, just a lot of bug fixes and things along that line is what my main goal is, and probably a little bit of map balancing, especially as you guys tell me how you are enjoying things like the new treasure objects, the line of sight stuff, etc. But yeah, that's gonna be it for this developer vlog. I hope you all have enjoyed and you do have fun testing the new version. Link, of course, in the description as per usual. But that's gonna be it for today. Hope you have enjoyed. You come back for the next, but until that time, thank you for watching, and as always, have a good one.